So in this video, I wanted to do a bit of a cleanup episode where I talk a little bit about some of the things that I haven't had a chance to talk about this year. This is just sort of some miscellaneous pens and I don't think I have any pencils, but markers or whatever that I've acquired and I haven't had a chance to talk about on the channel in the past year. So I figured I would just kind of bunch them up and do a quick run through of some interesting stuff out there in the pen world that doesn't really fit into any of the categories we've been covering. So jump right into it in no particular order. Here we have a Pilot. This is sort of like a pen, it's really a marker for me, but they call it I think it's like a sign pen. I don't even remember the name, but I bought it. It has a very cool look to it, a distinctive looking clip, and these kind of marks here. It's clearly in Japanese. It has a sort of a paintbrush type tip. So this is a Pilot, and I would call this a sign pen. For me, just a marker. Haven't had a ton of chance to use it. I don't know. I wish I had more to say about it, but it's just kind of a cool little marker that I've been using more for like highlighting and underlining than anything else. So interesting. Definitely not particularly notable and doesn't really fit into kind of how I use my pens lately, but I do like looking at it. I think it's a very cool looking little thing. I bought this one. I've had this one actually for a pretty long time, and I just never really talked about it. This is I think it's called the Visi pen or something like along those lines, but it's easy to find. This is called the Lefthanded pen, and it's from this company called Maped or Maped or Mapped. I'm not really sure. Maped. It's supposed to be designed for lefties, which I am, but I found it to be very perplexing. It is clearly bent. It's not straight, which makes it look completely insane. And there's no clip. Has a lanyard cable instead. Strange little cap again. No clip here. And this one was never a good writer for me. Kind of has an old school ballpoint refill, kind of like a Papermate type of feel to it. And it's supposed to appeal to lefties, but I can never figure out why. Plus, because it's sort of like, I guess it's just asymmetrical, it feels very unstable in my hand. It kind of wants to wiggle back and forth, even though it's kind of triangular and it should be fine. And it just feels like it's wiggling side to side as I write. And I can never quite get the hang of this thing. I guess some people out there really like it, and it might be worth trying if you're a lefty who's having problems with your writing or having problems with smearing, and you have to do some like kind of, under kind of like a hook type thing, and you're doing that. I think it is meant to support that, but I'd done some research when I purchased it. I thought, oh wow, maybe this is going to be a great pickup for me, and it just, I could tell you it never worked, not even a little bit. And not that my handwriting is that great, but it never worked for me, and I always found it to be very uncomfortable. This is a very standard old school ballpoint. It's called the Schneider K20. This like kind of see-through is called the Icy Colors, ICY. And it's just a very standard old school ballpoint. I think I bought a pack of these at some point. I can't remember why. It's a very proficient pen. Has no complaints at all with it. I like the old school look. It's retractable, has a nice button, a really nice click. Looks like a pen from yesteryear. This is the Schneider K20. And you could just see how it writes and see the quality of the ballpoint ink over the quality of this one. This is light, has sort of like railroading, it kind of misses out on some sections. This one here is rock solid, and Schneider is just a very high quality pen all around. So this is the K20, definitely worth picking up if you need some like very good utility pens. This right here it's called the Pasta, which is kind of hilarious. It's from Kokuyo, the Japanese company. We've had some of their pens on this channel before. It is rectangular, which is very cool. And this is kind of a highlighter. No big shock there. I just bought it for the design. I've been using it a little bit. You twist to extend, which is very cool. And it's sort of a waxy sort of crayon type highlighter. It works really well. It's very soft, so you have to be careful with it. Definitely don't let any like kids use it. And it's this soft crayon type material. So fun to use, very easy to abuse, which you kind of just want to keep coloring with it. And, you know, I've been using this one for some light highlighting, but I definitely have enjoyed it. I don't use highlighters a ton, and when I do, I tend to use marker type ones. Kind of like this one here. This is a Pentel Fitline for Cleana, which has a kind of a dual-sided design, and it comes in this really nice teal color, kind of like more my speed. This is a there's a Sakura Ballsign ID 0.5. These were kind of like highly regarded when they came out. They were kind of like popular and hard to get for a few minutes, but I bought a few. This one I haven't even used yet. I bought a few of them, and I found them to be really sort of disappointing. They're scratchy. Color is brown, which is fine, but it didn't really appeal to me. I don't like the pen body. It looks very drab. It doesn't feel nice in your hand. Kind of feels cheap. Interesting clip. This piece up here on the front piece is plastic, and it kind of loosens up a lot. And I bought a few of these because I couldn't figure out why they were selling out, and it looked like an interesting design, but just it never really appealed to me at all, even though it's, once you're writing with it, aside from the sort of scratchiness, it is a proficient gel pen. And I really do like Sakura's gel pens in general. The Ballsign is an excellent series of pens, but this one just doesn't do it for me. This is the Schneider Tops 505, and this is sort of like this German company's kind of like maybe bottom of the line ballpoint. Looks like it was designed, 50 years ago, and it has just the most old school, low quality ballpoint ink you can imagine. Really light, not smooth. Definitely was like not a modern ballpoint, like the Jetstream or an Acro or anything like that. And I like the look to it, but this is sort of the pen you would throw in the garage or in the glove compartment of your car and just sort of like use it as you need it in emergency and never really think about. Kind of a fun pickup there. This is called the Uni-ball Signo Gel Stick 0.7. And this is just a really strange gel pen from Uni-ball. And I had never seen this one before, which is strange. You don't tend to run into too many pens I just have never ever seen before, and especially not from Uni-ball. But it's a standard gel pen, writes nicely. It's a lot like a Signo, but it has a different body to it. It's a very sleek, sort of torpedo-shaped body, and it's totally fine. It's actually it's a nice writer. Smoother than you expect, and a nice sort of, I don't know what that is, like kind of like a blue-green, maybe a bit of grayish blue ink in there. A very cool looking ink. Totally proficient, and probably worth spending more time with. Kind of a strange line. I don't even know where I got it. I don't even know if I could find another one of these. On the thin side, so never really found it to be super comfortable. This is a hard plastic, but there's some ridges here, so it's pretty, comfortable enough if you can get over the thinness. Anyway, just a sort of a strange gel pen that is better than you'd expect. This is the Pilot P700 in fine, and this is a very strange little rollerball that I had never seen before. Has this weird clip with that sort of shield on it. Old school design, quite small. Kind of that lined, sort of ridged grip, which we've talked about, and a needle tip. So it's like a very old school, I would say, liquid rollerball. It's called the P700. I was never blown away with the sort of ink quality. You can see this ink is actually, it's not writing well. Like the ink probably is separating or something like that. But it was never a great writer when I first got it. So maybe it was just a dud, but definitely a weird liquid rollerball. I have to kind of figure out what's going on with this ink. Just look at that body. It's like very, very 80s. What is that? Like a storm pattern or something like that? Clouds? Very weird. And it's just sort of like retro and dated. So who knows what's going on with this thing. These you could find if you Google for that P700. You could definitely track these down still. This was the Pilot Friction, which is my preferred type of erasable pens. They came out with erasable highlighters, which is not really something that has come up a lot. and it was never a great highlighter. Now it's getting a little dry. It's at the end of its life, but it was never really that good, so I never used it much. And let's see if it will erase. Yep, so erases quite well, but again, an erasable highlighter. Not really sure how often that comes up. It's not something that I've ever needed, but this thing is pretty much worn out now, so I guess it got some use to it. So that's the friction highlighter. This was the Sailor, and I think they call this one paint pen, something like that, and it's kind of a brush marker. You can see that brush type tip, and it's the Sailor. It's called the Shikiori. And it has a sort of brush tip to it. Quite cool if you're into sort of like art stuff like that. I was never really able to master it, but it's a fun one to have around. It is very cool looking, kind of a long shape to it. It has a sort of paintbrush type shape. It is dual-sided. So here you have a light, very small, sort of almost like a rollerball tip, kind of like a Sharpie type pen, and it's the same color, obviously. So I was more interested in this little side, but it's a little too thin for day-to-day writing, and it kind of has a lot of drag to it. I don't feel like you're going to get a lot of use to it. This side is kind of like a full-on art type paintbrush where you can get some art type effects, or you could lay it down a little bit more. But again, this is never one I really spent any time working with, and definitely have not mastered, but interesting design and kind of a fun pickup. Pretty affordable too at 200 Japanese yen. This is called the Mark Plus. I think this is also from Kokuyo. Yep, from Kokuyo. And this is a dual-sided highlighter. Not really sure why I bought this one. I think I just wanted to test out this design. Look, I mean, that is very cool. That is like a very intricate highlighter. And I like this one. This was gray on one side and pink on the other. Kind of a nice bright pink. You wouldn't never really use them at the same time, but I guess you could. Actually, probably. I mean, you can, but there's no reason for that. So this is from Kokuyo, and it's a dual-sided highlighter. This one I think is actually, like, of everything we've looked at so far, this is my favorite of the bunch. It's kind of short and fat, and it's fun to use. I mean, that just looks incredibly cool for me. Kind of looks like horns on some sort of animal, and it works very well. I think it looks really awesome. Has a Japanese writing, kind of like corresponding colors here, so definitely a fun pickup. Lastly is this. This is called the LiveWork. Yeah, I just bought this one, which said literally mayonnaise on it. That's the color of the body, not the color of the ink. It's a very cheap, very simple plastic retractable pen, kind of like a Kirkland. They have old school retro pens. And then actually, surprisingly enough, it's a really nice ballpoint. It works quite well. And it's, again, mayonnaise color. How do you beat that? And opening up, you could see just an old school rando ballpoint pen in there. If you are tracking down a ballpoint, you want some fun colors, it's called the LiveWork. So yeah, that's just some really fun random pens that I've been playing around with in 2023.